The Realme 6 Pro is finally here, and with a price tag of Rs 16,999, it is definitely going after Poco X2's market, which by the way is $1,000 cheaper. Well, I won't be dwelling into a full-fledged comparison. That is something that you can see on the Hindi channel of Guiding Tech, but I will be focusing on an in-depth comparison of the cameras on both the devices, basically Sony versus Samsung sensors, Well, without wasting any more time, hey guys, this is Varun from Guiding Tech, and today I'll be comparing the Poco X2 with the newly launched Realme 6 Pro's camera. Let's get started. Kicking things off with some daylight shots, and right off the bat you can see that the dynamic range of the 6 Pro is slightly better than the Poco X2. That said, the X2 definitely captures more crisp images and it shows. Now in this next shot of a flower, the Realme 6 Pro does a far better job, while Poco, well, not only does it struggle in keeping the focus on but also struggles with the overall lighting. Now moving on to this next shot of a cute little doggo, you can see just how much the Poco ends up saturating the shot. The image is a tad bit sharper, though if you're capturing a moving object, both the phones do an equally good job. Next up is the shot of the city's traffic, in which you can see just how much the Poco X2 struggles with the sun directly coming into the lens. Now both are good shots, I'll give you that, but when you take the sky into account, the 6 Pro definitely takes the lead here. Now a bigger and a better proof of the HDR is in this shot. As a matter of fact, I took the same shot on Poco thrice cause I just could not digest how this phone was struggling against its counterpart. Now I know the shot in itself is pretty darn good, but take into account Realme's shot and I have to give the winner to Realme. The Poco's image is definitely sharper, but it's not enough to give it the points. But it's not like Poco's camera is defeated already. For instance, in this next shot, you can see just how well it has managed to capture the road's colors while keeping a balance to the leaf as well. Oh, and pixel peeping also shows what we've seen already, which is, well, that the image is much more detailed and sharper. Realme goes for a cooler tone, which is weird because this shot was taken under direct sunlight, that too in the middle of the afternoon. Now let's talk about different perspective images. Starting off with the ultra-wide sensors, both the images offer a wide field of view, but Realme's image, well, it just looks much better. It does justice to both the sky and the trees. Poco, on the other hand, well, it goes for a yellowish tint on the greens, which is weird to say the least. Moving on to the 1x zoom, and while both the images look great, I think Poco gets a marginal victory here due to the amount of details it manages to capture. You could literally zoom in a lot without losing details, and this isn't even the full 64MP shot. I mean, it's a close call, but solely for the details, I think Poco gets a better job done. Next up, there's 2x zoom, and it's like Poco got a little too excited because this image lacks a lot of details. The 6 Pro does a far better job in terms of details as well as overall colors. Lastly, moving on to 5x zoom, and once again Realme does a better job. The image is detailed, well structured and has the normal colors, while Poco goes for a very warm tone. Moving on to the 64MP shots, and while both the images look crisp, what surprised me the most is that Realme did a better job here. Now I know that sounds weird, but check this out. That is a massive difference in terms of overall quality, and while I'm not saying that Realme's shot is great, it is definitely better than Poco here. Which is all the more surprising considering Poco's image is at around 36MB while Realme's shot is just 19MB. Now it's clear that Realme is relying more on over-sharpening here, especially if you take a look at the road, but once again I would have to hand it to the 6 Pro nonetheless. Moving on to macro shots, and Poco comes out swinging hot. The shots are super crisp and the details are just amazing here. As for Realme, the colors are not at all balanced and the photo looks quite soft. It's not even a competition here, to be honest. Poco just wins this hands down. Now next up is portrait photography, and before we get into talking about the samples, there's one thing that I want to address first. The Poco X2 is a weird phone because even after tapping on the subject, it fails to focus properly on it. Like, I'll show you in the samples. I was tapping on Ashish's face and the Poco would just not focus on it. It would just focus on the backdrop, which is weird. Maybe it does not like Ashish's face. I don't know. But I thought that, but then Ashish tried to click a photo of me and even that wasn't a good idea on the Poco X2. That said, once you turn on the portrait mode, things get better. Quite better. In fact, the overall results produced are quite nice. Now let's talk about the samples, like I said. Now here's a normal shot of Ashish and you can see what I was talking about in terms of focusing. But turn the portrait mode on and the image produced is quite good. Now moving on to a different face, basically me. In the normal shots you can see that while Poco adds an ever so slightly reddish tone to my face, the overall shot looks much more crispier than Realme. Now turn the portrait mode on and the colors are well maintained on both the images, but I think Poco is definitely the winner here. Realme has blown the highlights off of my t-shirt, and while the edge detection is pretty much the same on both the phones, the bokeh definitely looks more realistic on Poco. Now moving on to rear videos, and the Poco is warming the footage while Realme is going for a slightly cooler tone. Now neither of them are accurate, but I think Poco is doing a much better job overall. I mean, just look at that stabilization. Even while panning the camera around, there's not a lot of focusing issues either. See, in terms of colors, while Realme is more close to the real thing, I would pick the Poco here just for that stabilization. Now moving on to selfies, and I would pick Poco here any day of the week. Not only is the skin tone well managed, my t-shirt is looking spot on and the background hasn't been blown away. Like, just look at that hoarding on the bridge behind and you'll see what I'm talking about. Now once you turn on the portrait mode, well, the edge detection is bad. I mean, like really bad on both the phones. The way they've treated my spectacles is laughable and both of them have blown the background here. Now I don't think either of these shots is good, but looking at the road behind me, I think I would still stick with Poco. Now moving on to the selfie footage, and I think Realme does a far better job here than Poco, and this is something that I noticed while recording the footage itself. Here, take a look for yourself. Okay, so now I'm recording selfie footage from both the devices. Once again, the Realme is on my left hand while the Poco is on my right side. As I highlighted, Realme is obviously a little more zoomed in. I'm going to start walking a bit, and both of them have their own sort of beauty modes being applied, even though I have turned it off in the settings. I think I would still prefer Realme's footage because Poco is kind of increasing the contrast, like as you can see from my t-shirt and my hair. Now moving on to low light photography, Poco definitely captures a more detailed shot while Realme has a hard time fighting with the noise. Now turn the night mode on and the tables quite literally turn. Poco's shot is softer here while Realme is able to keep the subject in detail. At least more than the Poco. Now in this next shot of a crane, both the images look good. The Poco, well, it's doing a tad bit of over sharpening here that, well, actually makes the image look much better. That said, once again, turning the night mode on gives the throne easily to Realme, which manages to capture an absolutely stunning and well detailed shot. I mean, this image overall looks so damn good that, I would just frame it. It looks really good. Lastly, talking about low light selfies, and interestingly, Poco does give a more brighter shot. That said, Realme's image looks much more detailed and sharper, so there's that. Overall, I think personally I'll still go with Poco here because trying to fine-tune Realme's shot would result in a lot of noise and nobody wants that. So who's the winner here? I mean, it's a tough call because both the phones actually give each other neck-to-neck competition and they both outperform each other in certain areas and then they just go out to like completely blow away their lead. So well, if I have to make a decision here, it's obviously going to be a divided call, but personally I think if you're a vlogger who relies a lot on the front camera, or if you're someone who takes a lot of daylight shots and needs that high dynamic range, the Realme 6 Pro is definitely the better option here. That said, if you can compromise a little bit on the dynamic range and you want absolute sharpness, I mean, it can look a little bit over sharpened in some cases, but nonetheless the details are there, and if you want some results like that, the Poco X2 will be a better choice for you. Plus, you also save 1,000 more rupees on that. So, I mean, it's a win-win situation in either cases. Well, this was fun. Now, there's not a clear winner here. I mean, both the phones easily win in certain areas, like I just described. But if you'd like to take a look for yourself, I'll be leaving a download link to all the images in the full resolution, directly taken from the phone and uploaded to Dropbox for you guys to check it out for yourself. This is Varun from Guiding Tech, and I'll see you in the next one.